Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Sight for White and White Sense, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Friday the 20th of September 2024. Well, our open day is nearly upon us. It is next Tuesday the 24th at the Riverside Centre from 11 till 3:30. Looking forward to seeing a lot of people there. We've also this Saturday are going to be in the square, St Thomas Square, with the Vintage Motorbike Isle of Wight Club, who have nominated us as their Charity of the Year. I'm pretty much hoping that they're going to let me get on the back of one of the motorbikes, but only time will tell. So if you are free Saturday, do pop along, say hello in the square. We've got volunteers and staff there to help. Straight after the open day next Tuesday, I'm heading up to Birmingham because it is the annual Visionary Conference. The Visionary Conference is made up of all of the sight loss charities in the country. We all get together once a year. It's a really informative, great meeting, listening to what others are doing and getting ideas to bring back to the island. I've actually been asked to present at 2 out of the 6 workshops this year, which is amazing. First of all, we're talking about how we work with our rehab. The title of the group is Don't Send a Rovie to Put a Bump on a Microwave. And secondly, I'm in the prevention workshop and we're talking about our project where we go to the Isle of Wight schools to educate children how to best look after their eyes. So everybody stay safe and enjoy yourselves. Thank you, Lisa, CEO, Sight for White and White Sense.
And here is this week's charity news for the 20th of September 2024.
On Monday, our swimming is at Medina Leisure Centre in Newport, starting at 1:15pm until 2pm. Please note the new timings. We have the pool to ourselves, and therefore if you would like to swim lanes or just have gentle exercise in the pool, you are more than welcome to join us. The cost is £6 and transport is available, although limited. Advance warning, there will be no swimming on Monday the 30th of September due to unavailability of the pool.
There will be no yoga at Millbrook House on Tuesday, but will resume next week on the 1st of October.
Coffee and chat is on Wednesday, starting at 10am until 11:30am. The cost is £2 to include drinks and cake. Staff are on hand to help with any queries and to demonstrate equipment. The Sight for White catch-up and feedback will start at 11am, so please feel free to come along and let us know how we can improve services, etc. If you are unable to make the meeting, please call the office with any input you may wish to include.
Eye on Social will be on Wednesday with a trip to the Isle of Wight Bust Museum in Ryde, meeting at 1:30pm. Please let the office know if you wish to attend.
Thursday, our Mix and Mingle group will resume starting at 10:30am. This group enjoys many activities including craft, quizzes, singing and each other's company. There is currently a waiting list for this group, but do not hesitate to call the office to put your name down on the list.
Tomorrow will be in St Thomas's Square, Newport, between 10am and 2pm for the Isle of Wight Vintage Motorcycles Show. We are their chosen charity for the year, so come along and have a chat with our wonderful volunteers who will be in the square collecting money. Last week we announced our RID, the White sponsored bike ride, but unfortunately, due to circumstances out of our control, we have made the decision to postpone it until next April.
Our Community Vision and Hearing Day is at the Riverside Centre on Tuesday the 24th of September. Please put it in your diary. Please come along and meet people offering new equipment, support and always a friendly smile. The day runs between 11am and 2:30pm. On-site parking is available.
Next Friday, our Striders will be meeting at St Helens to enjoy a 6-mile stride around St Helens, Bembridge and the surrounding area. Transport from Millbrook and Newport bus station is available. Please call the office for more information.
Our monthly 100 Club has spare balls available. If anyone would like to buy a ball, it is £2 per month or £24 for the full year. The more balls in draw, the higher the prize money each month. If you would like to take part in our monthly draw, please call the office. This is part of our fundraising activities.
And if you are interested in joining any of the activities, please do not hesitate to call the office and speak to Susan for more information.
Hi, this is Steve reading a story from the Island Echo, headlined Donkey Sanctuary cuts opening days from 7 to 5 this winter. The Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary has announced that it will only be opening 5 days a week from November to enhance the welfare of its donkeys. From 4th of November, the sanctuary will close to visitors on Thursdays and Fridays. These quiet days will allow staff to dedicate more time for health checks, personalised care and enrichment, while providing the donkeys with extended periods of rest and stress-free grazing. This initiative is part of a broader effort to establish the charity as a centre of excellence in donkey welfare. Over the past year, the sanctuary has invested significantly in welfare-focused improvements, including the creation of new paddocks, enhanced shelter conditions, a refurbished care area for donkeys in need of extra attention, and additional training for staff in advanced equine welfare techniques. This new opening schedule will ensure that the sanctuary continues to build on these improvements, providing the best possible care for donkeys and ponies. The quieter days will also allow the sanctuary to strengthen its community engagement programme by hosting small groups, such as dementia care groups, who benefit from a more peaceful environment. This will allow the sanctuary to broaden its outreach and deepen its positive impact on the community. Susan McCall, Chief Executive of the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary, says, "We're incredibly proud of the steps we've taken to further enhance our donkeys' welfare. We love seeing visitors enjoying the sanctuary, and we also recognise the importance of protecting the well-being of our animals. It's vital that we balance our commitment to welcoming the public with the need to prioritise the peace and care our donkeys need for a healthy, happy life." Dawn Finney, Chair of the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary, adds, "On behalf of the trustees, I want to thank everyone who supports the sanctuary, from our wonderful visitors to our hard-working staff, volunteers, our fundraisers and donors. We are thrilled to be moving towards a sustainable future where both our animals and the community can continue to thrive."
Hello, this is an article from the Isle of Wight Radio, read by Sue. Haven Falconry on the move as crowdfunding appeal launched. The Falconry Experience has revealed plans to relocate from its current site at the Isle of Wight Steam Railway. The organisation, previously known as Haven Falconry, said the seasonal closures of the railway greatly impact their income, leaving them unable to sustain the centre despite their year-round expenses. Following a severe financial setback in January, discussions about closing the centre and relocating their beloved birds revealed that many could end up in rescue centres, depriving them of their freedom and natural behaviours. Determined to avoid this heartbreaking outcome, the team has opted to remain open on a day-to-day basis while searching for a new premise. The team will relocate to Butterfly World this winter, though the Falconry said financial constraints still hinder the ability to move, with the current team operating primarily on a day-to-day basis to support the birds. They are seeking urgent assistance to fund the relocation process. Without the necessary resources to transport and rebuild enclosures for their beloved free-flying birds of prey, the future of the centre hangs in the balance. Community support is crucial in helping ensure the well-being of the birds and the continuation of their vital conservation and educational efforts. Relocating the Falconry Centre involves significant logistical challenges, including the disassembly and reconstruction of 30 enclosures and outbuildings, many of which are not suitable for transport. The centre urgently requires manpower, trucks, lorries and materials like wood, gravel and skips, all of which come with substantial financial burden that the team currently lacks. Community support in terms of volunteer labour, equipment or donations of materials would be invaluable in ensuring a successful move and maintaining the well-being of the birds.
Consultation deadline approaches for controversial Camp Road development from the Isle of Wight radio read by Lee. Hostility towards proposed housing off Camp Road has continued to build ahead of a consultation deadline on Friday this week. Councillor John Medland, who represents Freshwater South on the Isle of Wight Council, has joined Freshwater Parish Council and 28 residents in lodging objections against a re-advertised application for 127 housing unit development with access roads and a junction. 2 weeks ago, the application was discussed alongside other contentious development proposals at Freshwater Parish Council meeting at Memorial Hall on September the 3rd. The county press has previously reported resistance focusing on the proposal's environmental impact, concerns over local infrastructure and road safety. Developer Tallulah Estates Limited plans have been revised from a prior application that was rejected over 11 years ago and which was first re-advertised in 2021. In a comment posted on the Isle of Wight Council's planning portal on September 11th, Councillor Medland said, "As a ward councillor, I am objecting to this application for the following reasons. This application is opposed by Freshwater Parish Council Planning Committee and expressed local opinion on multiple grounds. The application makes no sense in the National Planning Policy Framework's NPPF own definition of sustainable development. The application conflicts with the Freshwater Neighbourhood Plan, FNP. There has been minimal investment in water, gas, electricity, sewage, and surface water further drainage, contradicting NPPF 8 and 22. Our peripheral service infrastructure is already under acute pressure due to recent overdevelopment. The application is unlikely to meet local housing need. The outline plan seems to offer no method of effective floodwater mitigation. Freshwater resident Andrew Hazel said, "I object to this revised proposed development on several grounds. Area already has insufficient drainage to cope with the insufficient houses in the area. Road and gardens of neighbouring residences flood each year, even with a big agricultural space soaking up extensive amounts of water. Unsafe location of proposed development of this size due to entrance and exit to site being on a blind spot and in close proximity to other road junctions. A development of this size will bring with it 200 plus cars. Camp Road is a narrow country lane, single passing in many parts and without pavement. How will this be safe for pedestrians, cyclists, residents, families trying to walk children to school? There will be serious accidents."
This is Den reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. A.J. Wells and Sons presented with King's Award for International Trade. Lord Lieutenant Susie Sheldon has this week presented Newport-based firm A.J. Wells and Sons Limited with a prestigious King's Award. Founded on the Isle of Wight in 1972, A.J. Wells and Sons is a family-run business with a dedicated team of 172 employees. The company, which operates from Dodnor Estate in Newport, is renowned for its design and manufacture of charnwood, clean-burning wood stoves, Vlaze outdoor kitchens, and cutting-edge architectural vitreous enamel solutions. Additionally, they are known for producing much of the signage and cladding for the iconic London Underground and Paris metro systems. With Europe as its largest export market, A.J. Wells and Sons Limited has expanded its global footprint, reaching markets including North America, South Africa, Japan and Australia. The company operates its own sales teams in France, Poland and Ireland, and has a subsidiary in the USA. Over the past 3 years, overseas sales have surged by 115%, with exports now accounting for 31% of the company's total sales. This success has led to the awarding of the King's Award for Enterprise International Trade. The award was formally presented at the company's studio on Tuesday afternoon. Lord Lieutenant Susie Sheldon said, "The achievements of A.J. Wells and Sons Limited are genuinely impressive, and it is an honour to present them with the King's Award. Their dedication to British innovation, sustainability and their local community sets a wonderful example for others, and I extend my heartfelt congratulations to the entire team for their well-deserved success." Hugh Wells, Managing Director at A.J. Wells and Sons, expressed his thanks. "We are thrilled to receive the King's Award, which highlights the remarkable efforts of our team here at A.J. Wells and Sons Limited. Despite facing numerous challenges in recent years, our Christian faith and commitment have been our foundation. Our objectives to transform lives and delight customers are central to our mission, and this recognition underscores our progression towards these goals."
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from Isle of Wight Radio, headlined "Public Invited to Reopening of Ryde Police Station Next Month." The Police and Crime Commissioner, Donna Jones, has announced that Ryde Police Station on the Isle of Wight will reopen to the public next month. The public are welcome to attend the official opening on Friday 25th of October from 11 a.m. at the police base on Station Street. It's the latest police station to be opened by the Commissioner following her pledge to ensure residents feel connected to their police force once more. Ryde Police Station will have a brand new front counter to welcome the public, and it will be open on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. and on Saturdays from 9 a.m. until 2:30 p.m. The reopening of Ryde reaffirms the Commissioner's promise to ensure the island has 3 publicly accessible police stations. Newport Police Station remains open to the public every day, whilst the New Cowes Police Station is open to the public for drop-ins and pre-arranged appointments. Donna Jones said, "I'm delighted the public will be able to access Ryde Police Station once more. People have consistently told me they want to be better connected to their police force. This is something they expect and rightly deserve." Ryde Police Station closed to the public in 2014. Whilst police officers and staff have continued to work in the building and in the community, the public were not able to visit for routine inquiries or services. A decade later, I'm delighted to reopen the station and declare Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary open for business. This time last year, I announced my plans to open up the police service across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. Fast forward 12 months later, and the plans are right on track. The opening ceremony of Ryde Police Station will be held on 25th of October, and I'd be delighted for the local community to come along and celebrate.
Hello, this is an article from the Island Echo, read by Sue. Much loved local landmark makes top 3 in national vote. A local landmark in Ventnor has been awarded silver in a national vote. On Monday the 16th of September, the Seaside Heritage Network revealed its bucket and spade list of the top 10 favourite seaside places at a celebration at the Plaza Cinema and Art Deco Picture House in Weston-super-Mare. The open-air paddling pool on Ventnor Esplanade was revealed to have come second place in the competition of experiences as voted for by members of the public, pipped to the post by New Palace and Adventureland at New Brighton, Merseyside. Ventnor Town Council manages the popular local landmark, a shallow pool with an Isle of Wight shaped feature in the middle. Mayor Councillor Steve Cooper has thanked everyone who voted and said the award was a reflection of the effort by those who look after the paddling pool. Ventnor Town Council was delighted to take part in the Seaside Heritage Network competition and very humbled but proud that our seafront island paddling pool has achieved the runner-up slot. It is enjoyed by residents and visitors alike and by all ages, and to be recognised is to say thank you to all that maintain and keep the asset looking so bright and welcoming. Voters in the competition were encouraged to leave comments as to why they believed it should be included in the top 10 list for 2024, which included remarks such as, "It's so place-specific and gives everyone who sees it, or better still, paddles in it, a sense of local geography that jogs memories, and I first enjoyed this pool in the 60s, and it is still as popular as ever. Free and well used, whatever the weather, with Ventnor Beach just yards away."
Westacre fight rumbles on as campaigners file against recent court decision from the Island Echo, read by Lee. A group of campaigners who are fighting to stop the building of more than 400 new homes in Ryde have lodged an appeal against a recent court ruling. Plans to build much-needed new homes on the outskirts of Apley have been approved by the Isle of Wight Council twice. However, campaigners have been fighting for more than 5 years to put a stop to the development, to the detriment of those seeking local housing. A request for a judicial review was submitted to the High Court of London's Bench Division last September, with approval given by His Honour Judge Jarman earlier this year. Greenfield IOW Limited, the company formed to lead the campaign, had its day in court on the 1st of July when a rolled-up hearing took place at Southampton Combined Courts. Last month, Judge Jarman served his judgment after considering all matters and dismissed the case. Now, campaigners have taken their decision to the Court of Appeal Civil Division in a bid to stop the development from going ahead. As they say, the judge made mistakes and that the ruling was unfair. Developers, Captiva Homes, had planned to crack on with the building straight away, with the first homes ready to occupy in 2025. But the lodging of an appeal will delay the progression of the much-needed scheme, therefore delaying the availability of new housing stock at a time of a housing crisis. A spokesperson for Greenfield IOW has said, "Whilst we too want closure on this case, we have yet to see a judgment which we and our legal team believe makes judicial sense based on the evidence presented at court last July. Accordingly, we must pursue this matter with the superior courts until we do see that. When we do, we will stop, not before."
This is Den reading an article from the Isle of Wight Radio. Island teacher launches new nature-based initiative for all ages. An Isle of Wight teacher has swapped the classroom for the outdoors as she launches Wild Isle, which looks to promote well-being for all ages through a connection with nature. Mum of two, Ellie Franklin, has spent the last 13 years working with children and young people, most recently as a primary school teacher in Sandown. But the love of the outdoors and building relationships with children and supporting their needs has encouraged her to take an entrepreneurial step forward, resulting in the launching of Wild Isle. The new venture, which looks to provide a connection with nature from bump to adulthood, offers engaging sessions island-wide, including for those home-educated and those on a part-time timetable. As a qualified primary teacher holding a degree in early childhood studies, Ellie has extensive experience and knowledge which she now is utilising as an outdoor educator. Ellie puts relationships with children at the forefront of what she does, which enables them to explore in a safe manner. This is especially crucial when working with children with additional needs. Over the last few years, Ellie has formed meaningful relationships with children that has enabled them to remain in the classroom. Wild Isle is offering perinatal mental health sessions, which are supported by funding from the Isle of Wight Council's Early Help Fund. Bumps and Babies encourages new mums to get out of the house and form relationships with other new parents, supporting their mental well-being through engaging with nature, formed from Ellie's studies in adult mental health and well-being. Wild Isle is working in partnership with other local organisations, including Pigsty Farm CIC in Porchfield and Wild Roots IWCIC. Relationships are also being developed with the National Trust and Gift to Nature. As well as bespoke packages for home-educated children, supported by a team of qualified teachers and a specialist speech and language beach school practitioner, after-school sessions and family workshops are also being offered year-round. Ellie says, "When on maternity leave with our youngest daughter, I realised that I couldn't return to the classroom full-time like many teachers. I realised that I needed to explore a new opportunity, putting my years of experience and my love for nature together. As an islander, I couldn't think of anywhere better to bring together a fusion of education and the outdoors, from the farm to the beach. Tutoring in a formal environment is not for everyone, so I have developed a group tutoring programme of study which sees children access a more relaxed education, working across age groups to develop social skills and collaboration. For many years I have volunteered my time to support families and children affected by parental imprisonment, as well as my own lived experience. This has given me a unique understanding of different challenges families face. Wild Isle is excited to support families further by offering time to provide sessions with the national charity Appeal."
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from Isle of Wight Radio, headlined "Council Leader Urges Caution on Heavy-Handed Action Over Ferries." Councillor Phil Jordan, the leader of Isle of Wight Council, has today responded to the motions set to be discussed at the full council meeting regarding the reliability, affordability and regulation of the island's ferry services. In a statement, he has expressed his wishes to reassure island residents that the council is fully aware of the critical importance of cross-solent travel and is already taking action. He said, "While I appreciate the concerns raised by my fellow councillors, I want to make it clear that the work they are asking for is already well underway. We've been in ongoing and constructive discussions with both of the island's MPs throughout the summer, and we share the concerns about ferry reliability, affordability and long-term sustainability. These are not new issues, and we have been actively engaging with both Red Funnel and Whitelink, as well as government officials, to secure meaningful progress." Councillor Jordan emphasised that his administration has been working diligently to ensure the island's vital ferry links remain robust, affordable and reliable for residents and visitors alike. He highlighted the importance of collaboration with all parties, including MPs and ferry operators, to find solutions that will benefit island residents without jeopardising the services on which they depend. Councillor Jordan added, "We need strong, honest communication with all stakeholders to achieve the outcomes we all want. I believe that too much heavy-handed pressure, without careful consideration, could have unintended consequences for our local economy and island residents. Rest assured, ferry links are a top priority for my administration, and we're already working with MPs and ferry operators to improve these critical services." Councillor Jordan's remarks were promoted by two motions on cross-solent travel to be discussed at full council. The first, from Councillor M. Lilly, calls for urgent meetings with ferry operators, MPs and the NHS to address reliability issues, particularly for islanders needing healthcare services. The second motion, proposed by Councillor E. Blake, calls for government intervention and regulation of ferry services, drawing comparisons to other UK ferry services that receive government support. Councillor Jordan reiterated that his administration has already taken decisive steps in these areas. "I have written to our MPs and proposed that we approach the government together to review ferry services. This includes the possibility of regulatory oversight, compensation for passengers affected by cancellations, and examining potential price caps for essential journeys, particularly for those travelling for healthcare. These are real issues that we are proactively addressing, and we will continue to do so in a measured and collaborative way." The council leader cautioned against rushing into decisions that may not take into account the complexities of the situation. While I understand the frustrations of our residents and fellow councillors, we must approach this with care. A balanced approach is essential to ensuring long-term sustainable improvements that protect our island's people and economy. Councillor Jordan concluded by reassuring the public that the Isle of Wight Council remains committed to improving cross-Solent services and working in the best interests of island residents.
Hello, this is an article from the Island Echo, read by Sue. 8-week closure of Yarmouth Bridge to come into force on Monday. Motorists are reminded that a major project to replace the entire deck of Yarmouth Bridge will begin on Monday the 23rd of September. The work is scheduled to last up to 8 weeks, during which the structure will be closed to road traffic at all times, with the usual diversion via Wilmingham Lane and the Middle Road in place. Pedestrian access will be maintained throughout the work, and cyclists too will still be able to use the bridge during work as long as they dismount. Island Roads have also worked with the Harbour Commission to minimise disruption to river traffic. It will be the first time the deck has been replaced in its entirety since 2009. Island Roads has produced a short film explaining the work and which features aerial footage of the bridge in operation. The work has been planned for outside the main holiday season to minimise inconvenience, but also at a time of year when there is a reasonable chance of mild weather, which is helpful to the performance of some of the materials being used. At 90 metres long, Yarmouth Bridge is the island's second largest bridge. It is a 7-span structure comprising of a steel main beams with composite timber decking. The highly durable new decking system is the same as that used to redeck London's Tower Bridge.
Good morning, everybody. This is Imelda, who's been reading the paper to you this week.
And Sam. And we begin with more news items taken from the County Press and the Observer, starting with an item headlined "Tax Bill Could Close Not-for-Profit Outfit." Is this fair? Those are the words on John Goodenough's lips, manager of Care in the Garden, who is worried for the future of the not-for-profit organisation, which had to shell out over £23,000 in VAT alone last year. With the VAT and the rising costs of everything, this little company will struggle to continue, said John, who has been with Care in the Garden for 14 years. We're working tirelessly to keep going. We don't want to close. We have nearly 100 people here working throughout the week, and it would break a lot of people's hearts if we had to. Care in the Garden was set up to create work opportunities for adults with additional needs, and is funded by what it grows, makes and sells at its nursery on Palmer's Brook at Wotton Bridge. Social care is underfunded, and the council has had its social care budget cut year upon year, said John. Companies like ours are scratching our heads thinking, where are we going to get the money from? We rely on our sales to cover the shortfall. Last year was a good year for us sales-wise, the best we've ever had, but at the end of the year, the government gave us a whammy of a VAT bill. It rocked us to the point of panic. We're not against paying VAT. We don't want to be exempt, but we want to be treated fairly. You analyse it, and on one side, we save the council money by taking on their responsibility, and on the other, we make the government a lot of money. But we struggled like mad in the middle, delivering the work that we do and the support and training we provide to give the guys who work here hope for their future. Nobody in this company owns an executive wage. No one earns any more than anyone else. That's the ethos we started with, but you find you do become a tax collector for the government. It takes us longer to produce products, so we cannot be as commercially viable as the company up the road. What we're asking for is more of a level playing field. John says the organisation has been inundated with support from locals. I don't think people realise just how much we have here. It's a proper shopping experience. We have so much to offer beyond just plants. Why not pop in and have a look?
No island prisoners to be released. No HMP Isle of Wight prisoners are expected to be released early as part of emergency government efforts to ease prison overcrowding. That is according to POA, the Professional Trade Union for Prison, Correctional and Public and Private Mental Health Trust Service Providers. It comes after Justice Secretary Shabina Mahmood announced plans in July to cut temporarily the proportion of sentences which inmates must serve behind bars from 50% to 40%. As of last week, prisoners are being automatically released after they have served 40% of their sentence. The change in policy doesn't affect those who are in jail for serious violent offences with sentences of 4 years or more, as well as sex offenders. It only applies to a certain type of sentence wherein prisoners are automatically released after a set amount of time. The POA has confirmed no prisoners at HMP Isle of Wight will benefit from the changes in policy as the government looks to free up cells quickly.
Pupils face ban on mobiles. Pupils at Cowes Enterprise College are set to be banned from using smartphones during the school day as part of a move by one of the largest school academy trusts across its schools in England. Ormiston Academies Trust is phasing out access to smartphones for around 35,000 pupils at its 42 state schools across the country, of which Cowes Enterprise College is one. The Trust is bringing in the rules during the school day due to the overwhelming relationship between their use and mental health, according to Ormiston's Chief Executive, Tom Rees. He told the Guardian newspaper the Trust was seeing huge and real concerns about pupils' mental health, with a clear correlation between it and the use of phones and social media. Not all mobile phone use is equal, and the relationship between that and adolescent mental health, we think, is overwhelming, he said. There is a responsibility for society to respond, and a responsibility for schools to make it harder for children to access inappropriate content through the school day, and restrict the draw of social media. New policies on phones will be introduced at 8 of the Trust's 32 secondary schools this term, with the remaining academies following after liaising with parents. Access to phones is already rolled out at the Trust's primary, special needs and alternative provision schools. Mr. Rees said a battle for focus and concentration to help learning was one of the reasons behind the move, with pupils thinking about any notifications. That is impacting young people's ability to learn, to retain information, to concentrate and to focus, he said. An increasing distraction is catastrophic for the process of learning, true both at school and at home. In February, the Department for Education issued guidance which said, "We owe it to our children to do what we can to remove distractions and enable them to be fully present and engaged in the classroom." Former Education Secretary Gillian Keegan said, "We owe it to our pupils to keep them safe at school," adding 1 in 5 pupils had experienced bullying online, while 1 in 3 used phones in most lessons without permission.
School cracks down on students' toilet use. A secondary school has placed locked gates across the access to students' toilets. Toilets at Sandown the Bay CE School's secondary site will be locked during lesson time, opening during break times and lunchtime. Students will be able to access the locked toilets through being given a purple lanyard by a teacher should they have a reason to leave the lesson. The students will then ask for a key to the toilets at reception, giving their name so the school can monitor toilet usage and support students that need access. The school installed the gates over the summer holidays, citing some students using the toilet areas inappropriately as the motivation during the decision. In a letter to parents, head teacher Emma Bowden stated, "We've made the decision to proactively try to stop the vandalism and vaping that were causing some of our students some anxiety. Therefore, we have fitted gates which will be locked during lesson time. This does not mean that your child will not be allowed to use the toilet should they need to during lessons. If your child raises any queries, contact your child's tutor so that they may support and be aware of any concerns."
Plea for rethink over school closure strategy. A school's chair of governors has urged the council to reconsider controversial plans that could see the closure of several schools. In an open letter to the council's cabinet, Diane Barker, chair of governors at God's Hill Primary School, expressed deep concerns about the potential loss of all primary education provision in the rural heart of the island. She highlighted the impact the closure could have on more than 400 children should God's Hill, Arreton and Wroxall shut. Ms Barker pointed out that God's Hill's pupil roll is steadily increasing, with 177 children enrolled, including preschool provision. She also stressed that families who transferred their children from Chillerton and Rookley to God's Hill in January were given assurances by the council that their children would not face further educational disruption. Ms Barker added, "Amending this proposal to safeguard the possibility of one good rural community school would enable small school cohorts to merge as one viable cohort, incur less disruption for over 400 children, and minimise the cost of transporting those children to schools much further away."
High Sheriff presents medals to island rescuers. The Isle of Wight Half Sheriff has presented 8 long-serving search and rescue members with King's Coronation Medals. Graham Biss was delighted to honour the Isle of Wight Search and Rescue White SAR members with the medals, which were created to mark the coronation of King Charles III and Queen Camilla. Mr Biss was welcomed by Dean Terrett, the chair and founder of White SAR. He was given a tour of the new incident control vehicle, where he learned how a missing person search is coordinated and managed via the advanced SAR system incident mapping system and vehicle communication centre. Mr Biss also met the team's probationary search dogs, Miley and Ginny, and their trainee handlers.
Bay Area plans revealed. Bay Area regeneration plans were presented at Shanklin Theatre on Tuesday to an estimated 200 residents. Representatives from Shanklin Town Council, the Isle of Wight Council and the Environment Agency informed those present of a range of projects including Leeson Roadworks, the Council's Bay Plan, a project to renovate Shanklin's Clock Tower, Shanklin Sea Defence plans and work on the town's play areas for children. Michelle Love, Service Director for the Isle of Wight Council, told the public of the Council's work on Leeson Road, which has included drilling boreholes at the site and measuring the ground level of soil on both the road, surrounding footways and the landslip itself. The upper section of Leeson Road closed as a result of a catastrophic landslip in December last year. Ms Love explained the aim of the ground investigation and borehole drilling work was to find out what is going on beneath the surface, to try to understand how much recent movement there has been in the area, and to install new monitoring equipment. Laura Cansdale, Regeneration Programme Manager for the Isle of Wight Council, spelled out the council's Bay Place plan. The plan was launched in January this year in partnership with the Lake, Sandown and Shanklin Town and Parish Councils. It aims to achieve a broad range of objectives, including economic growth, infrastructure investment, and improving residents' quality of life. Cansdale said a key driver of the plan was a need to demonstrate a large population would be positively impacted by any intervention in order to receive government regeneration funds. Joe Robertson, MP for Isle of Wight East, commented on the presentations. Lots of important issues, obviously Leeson Road and how it affects Shanklin. There's been a lot of engagement in Ventnor. Of course it affects Ventnor more than anywhere else, but Shanklin too. When it's closed, you don't get that through flow of traffic, which is bad for local business. Secondly, the Bay Place plan, which has all sorts of different projects and opportunities involved. He expressed concerns about the Chancellor's budget, but hopes, once announced, there will be a way forward to apply for Bay Place plan funding.
Pipeline pressure. In Wednesday night full council meeting, Councillor Nick Stewart's motion to call upon the council to strongly object the ExxonMobil CO2 pipeline was met with a unanimous vote to action. Councillor Stewart explained in depth the downfallings of the proposal and the great risk to the island it posed, which as a result has gained a large amount of cross-party support. He called into question even the functionality of the pipeline, stating, in spite of their millions of pounds in project promotion, their technology of carbon capture is both unproven at scale, at cost, and in terms of the science. MP for West Wight, Richard Quidgley, remarked, the only technology that has actually been proven is the digger that will dig the trench. Councillor Ed Blake, a commercial fisherman, discussed how the pipeline would not just be affecting the island's land, but also the sea life and surrounding waters, due to what he described as a very delicate ecosystem. It was brought to the Council's attention by Councillor Julie Jones-Evans and Councillor Andrew Garrett that in 2020 almost 50 residents required hospital treatment and 200 were evacuated after the Denbury, now Exxon, pipeline ruptured in Sataria, Mississippi, releasing 31,000 barrels of CO2. Councillor Garrett spoke in the hopeful next step, saying, I think ExxonMobil needs to come clean on the risks, recognise that there is an already established record of things going wrong, and ultimately I hope we'll see the pressure of the people of the Isle of Wight so that they will withdraw their application before they even pursue it with government. In the statement, Councillor Stewart emphasised, we urge islanders to understand the immense damage this unnecessary pipeline does to our tourism, economy, our landscape and our island. If we are directly affected, organisations such as the National Farmers Union and the Country Landowners Association can provide expertise. Our advice is, if you don't like Exxon's options, tell them you object and that you will provide detailed objection if they proceed to a formal consultation. Please contact your councillors and MPs to tell them your thoughts and to offer your help in the campaign as the island needs your support in supporting this dreadful scheme. A meeting last week saw the formation of the Isle of Wight Call to Action Steering Committee, chaired by non-politically assigned Christopher Davies. Mr. Davis is behind a petition against the pipeline, which has more than 31,000 signatures. You can add your support at isleofwight.observer/pipeline, little, whatever you call it, I don't know, the little line, petition. The information for ExxonMobil can be found at Isle of Wight Observer Pipeline, little line, whoopsie. I must find out what that is called. The committee will determine the campaign strategy and raise awareness of the pipeline's potential impact. Councillor Stewart highlighted the cross-party nature of the initiative and said he was optimistic about the outcome of its effects. ExxonMobil has extended its consultation with local communities and stakeholders until September the 30th. The oil giant acknowledges diverse views on its plans, but has claimed there is a need for carbon capture and storage (CCS) technology in order to reduce emissions. Giant acknowledges diverse views on the plans, but has claimed there is a need for carbon capture and storage technology in order to reduce emissions.
Call for urgent action on ferry. The Isle of Wight Council has voted to take action on more expensive and less reliable ferry service and ExxonMobil's extremely damaging pipeline. At a full council meeting on Wednesday at County Hall, councillors voted for a motion merged from two separate submissions by councillors Michael Lilly and Ed Blake, which calls for the democratic control of Solent ferry companies, and Councillor Nick Stewart's motion urging the council to raise concerns and objections regarding the Solent CO2 pipeline with the government. Councillor Lilly and Blake's motion describes Cross Solent ferries as providing a lifeline service which is essential to the economic and social well-being of residents. It urges the council to work with the island's two MPs and call urgent meetings with ferry operators, Red Funnel and Whitelink, to discuss dissatisfaction with current services, as well as concerns about reliability in the coming winter months. The motion also calls on the government to recognise that entirely private and unregulated Solent ferries are no longer appropriate, especially given government plans for rail and buses. Make legislative provision to bring ferries under democratic control in line with its strategic vision on trains and buses, including regulations for particular prices, including options for caps and costs of travel, timetables and service reliability, the submission adds. The incoming Labour government has planned to give transport authorities the power to take control of bus services through franchising or public ownership. Transport Secretary Louise Hay also has plans to take rail passenger services into public ownership. Councillor Lilly said, This is an issue of total inequality. It's an inequality issue. It actually infringes islanders' human rights. We have many children on this island that have never crossed the Solent. There are children that live in Ryde and have never crossed the Solent. When you ask their families why, they say because we cannot afford ferry prices. We are in a cost of living crisis. In his motion on ExxonMobil's pipeline, Councillor Stewart proposed the council objects strongly to the project. Though the council can object to the pipeline, the UK government will decide whether to grant the American corporation a development consent order, which permits construction and maintenance, not the council.
New Island School, the first of its kind. The island's first school dedicated to children and young people with social, emotional and mental health needs has opened in East Cowes. That's SEMH. The former Isle of Wight Studio School in Grange Road has undergone a major refurbishment to provide specialist provision for initially 20 pupils. St George's Studio, a satellite site for St George's School in Newport, offers tailored facilities in a modern learning environment. Previously, there was no specialist primary or secondary school provision for youngsters who have an Education, Health and Care Plan, EHCP, with SEMH on the island. The school features a range of soft lighting, soft seating, including seating at different heights, and a calm, relaxed environment. There is a fully equipped kitchen to teach cooking and life skills, an art room, a gaming suite, workshops with equipment to develop practical skills, a multi-purpose hall, and outdoor table tennis tables.
Mums can breastfeed in libraries. The Isle of Wight Council has introduced dedicated breastfeeding spaces in its libraries. Since April, each of the Council's 6 libraries, Cowes, Freshwater, Newport, Ryde, Sandown and Ventnor, has been equipped with specially allocated chairs for mothers to breastfeed their babies. A spokesperson for the Council said, "Having a new baby is a big life event, can be stressful and overwhelming. Whilst women can breastfeed anywhere, feeding when out and about can be daunting at first. Providing dedicated breastfeeding spaces hopefully encourages families to go out into their community, even if they are breastfeeding, which will also help their mental well-being. The libraries also offer a range of books to help answer any breastfeeding questions new parents may have." Councillor Debbie Andre, Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care and Public Health, said, "By displaying the breastfeeding-friendly window stickers, businesses and organisations across the island can show that they welcome and support families."
MP keeps up pressure to find ferry solution. The Isle of Wight West MP Richard Quidgley says the Labour government is open to helping find a solution to the ferry crisis following a meeting with the minister. Mr Quidgley met with Mike Kane, the Minister for Aviation, Maritime and Security, on September the 11th and discussed concerns about cross-Solent travel. Mr Quidgley raised the difficulties faced by islanders due to unreliable ferry services and highlighted the failure of successive Conservative governments to take the island seriously. He said afterwards, "Both the Minister and those at the Department for Transport are for the first time not only aware of the issues islanders face, but are actually on our side. They're open to helping find a solution." Mr Quidgley also met with Secretary of State for Transport Louise Haigh on the matter. He said, "I'm under no illusion this will be a quick fix, but there's a noticeable difference in the positive attitude of this government compared to the previous one."
Videographer was filming skydiver during fatal fall. An Isle of Wight videographer who died during a parachute jump had been filming another skydiver during his fatal fall, an inquest heard. Sam Cornwell, 46, from Godshill, was skydiving on April the 28th near Shotton Airfield in County Durham when his main parachute failed to open properly. He suffered critical injuries and was pronounced dead at the scene at Southwest Industrial Estate near Peterlee. A preliminary inquest hearing was heard at Crook Civic Centre, where Coroner Jeremy Chipperfield heard from Jan Bostock, a senior environmental health officer with Durham County Council. Mr Bostock said the County Council was seeking independent analysis of the altimeter, GoPro camera footage and the other equipment used by Mr Cornwell on the day. There was also CCTV footage from the industrial estate which showed how the falling parachutist struck a roof, the inquest heard. Mr. Bostock said he had watched the footage taken on Mr. Cornwell's helmet-mounted camera of the other parachutist. We have got the imagery of the person he is being paid to take the video of, Mr. Bostock said. They appear to shoot off when it is actually their descent that is slowing. The officer told the inquest Mr. Cornwell's main canopy was then deployed, but it was twisted, but he did not yet know why. Mr. Bostock said Mr. Cornwell's reserve chute did not properly deploy either, and further investigation work was necessary. Mr. Chipperfield indicated that the full inquest hearing should be heard with a jury. He adjourned the case for a further hearing to assess progress of the case on January 14th. Sky High Skydiving, which operates out of the airfield, previously said, "We are all deeply saddened by the loss of a close friend, colleague, and talented member of our team, our skydiving family."
Solent swim mission accomplished. The popular Isle of Wight Solent Swim raised vital funds for the West Wight Sports and Community Centre last Saturday. A total of 51 swimmers successfully completed the annual swim, setting off from Hurst Castle at 7:45 a.m. By 8:10, they began arriving at Colwell Bay, cheered on by crowds of family, friends and supporters. The swimmers were escorted by a team of volunteer kayakers and a flotilla of small boats, which created a swim corridor for their safety. Freshwater Independent Lifeboat was also on hand, ensuring the well-being of everyone in the water. John Beavis from Yarmouth, who learned to scuba dive at the West Wight Centre and went on to work as a military diver during the 2012 Olympics, was one of the many participants inquired to support the case. Taking part in the swim for the first time, John said, "It was such a fantastic experience and so well organised. Thank you for letting me participate." Claire Griffin, centre manager, said, "Thank you to the 34 kayakers, 9 boat crews, freshwater lifeboat, captain's cabin, Yarmouth Harbour, Needles Pleasures Cruises, Ideal ML and all the volunteer beach crews. We couldn't do it without you." Now in its 12th year, the event has seen over 450 swimmers take part, raising more than £250,000 for the charity.
New community pantry opens. A new community pantry has opened on the island. Cowes Community Pantry opened on Tuesday, September the 11th, at Unit 1 Seaways. The pantry is the first in Cowes to offer fresh and frozen food, as well as ambient stock. Membership costs £5 for a weekly visit, for which members receive a minimum of £15 worth of food for. The pantry is open on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m, Thursdays from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m, and Saturdays from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Andy and Monique Gallop, who run the Seaview Road Pantry, have built relationships with suppliers and local businesses to fight food insecurity. "We've had major support online and on Facebook," Monique said. Andy explained that the walls of the pantry were donated by local building companies. "It's a massive project and we're still looking for donations." Despite financial support from businesses, parish and town councils, Andy and Monique say the Isle of Wight Council has not funded the project. Andy said, "We don't know where it's going because we keep on coming up against the same roadblock. We told them we're going to do it without them. It's obviously not the ideal situation. We didn't want them to fully fund us really, we were just looking for seed funding. Monique added, "We want the same support that other people on the mainland get from their councils. We get huge support from the parish councils, which is fantastic, but the Isle of Wight Council should support us. We have had support from other areas of the council, like public health." An Isle of Wight Council spokesperson responded, "The organisation approached us for funding. However, we already fund a community pantry in Cowes, and DWP guidance stipulates that we are unable to fund duplicate provisions. We asked the organisation to work with the current provision to discuss potential collaboration." Councillor John Nicholson, Mayor of Cowes, was in attendance at the pantry's opening. He said it's only because of the tenacity of Andy and Monique that this has come about. It's attractive for volunteers because you can see what Andy and Monique are doing is making a tangible difference.
Residents fight on to save historic farm from housing plans. Residents will continue their determined battle to protect one of Ryde's last farms from being lost to a major housing development. Greenfield Isle of Wight Limited, formed by the Elmfield community, has been campaigning for years to preserve Westridge Farm, a 200-year-old site which is at the centre of a dispute over plans to build 472 houses on the farmland. Last Friday, Greenfield Isle of Wight Limited filed an appeal with the Court of Appeal, challenging the decision made in July by Judge Jarman in the Administrative Court. While the July ruling largely favoured the Isle of Wight Council, it found that the Isle of Wight Council acted unlawfully on 2 of the 5 claims brought forward by Greenfield Isle of Wight Limited. The decision cleared the way for the housing project to proceed, with the residents believing the overall ruling to be unfair, vowing to take their fight to the higher courts. A Greenfield representative said, "While we too want closure on this case, we have yet to see a judgment which we and our local team believe make judicial sense based on the evidence. Accordingly, we must pursue this matter with the superior courts until we do see that. When we do, we will stop, not before." The land at Westridge Farm serves as a habitat for endangered species such as curlews, bats, swallows, dormice and migrating birds. The farm's proximity to the coastline makes it vital for flood protection and preserving the area's natural defences against climate change, a point emphasised by Councillor Michael Lilly, the representative for Ryde, Apley and Elmfield. "I have supported the Save Westridge Farm campaign for over 8 years, Councillor Lilly said. The land is not suitable for housing as there is inadequate and undeliverable road infrastructure. Now climate change has emphasised the need to preserve green fields near the coastline to prevent flooding and landslips. Residents have been real climate change, environmental and nature warriors in fighting to preserve the heritage of this farmland and the injustice my community has experienced through unlawful decisions by the Isle of Wight Council's planning process. This has always been a David and Goliath case, and David is not lying down. He's fighting back for future generations."
Demolition work underway. The demolition of Newport Football Club's former football stadium, St George's Park, is well underway. South Coast Leisure, SCL, owners of the site, started the demolition process of the former Newport FC clubhouse on Monday. The clubhouse had been deteriorating for several years after the club found itself unable to maintain the facility. It has been a long and frustrating wait for fans, players, staff and volunteers, but the demolition marks a step forward in the ongoing plans to build a retail park on the site, a scheme which will unlock funding for Newport FC's new home at the racecourse roundabout. The new ground will feature a clubhouse and grandstand overlooking an all-weather floodlit pitch. Meanwhile, the retail park will feature a mix of outlets, all household names, which will create a significant number of new jobs. The fan group, which owns and backs the club, has welcomed the latest development in the saga.
Birthing pains. The owners of the Kraken and Coral Star passenger vessels are concerned that they may have to move their business base to Lymington. Tom and Michelle Anderson were hoping to start running a daily service from Yarmouth to Lymington in July, shortly after the £1 million worth Kraken arrived in the harbour. However, on ongoing risk assessment requested by Yarmouth Harbour, which began on the 5th February the 16th, has meant the vessels, which seats 110 passengers, have been unable to operate throughout the summer. To compound their woes, the couples were given 14 days' notice last week to remove the Coral Star from its temporary summer mooring. Yarmouth Harbour Master Tim Adams said, "The harbour is currently conducting a formal assessment of risk for the Kraken's preferred passenger embarkation-disembarkation berth on the South Quay. In the meantime, Kraken is operating from their annual mooring. Regarding the Coral Star," he added, "our mooring allocation and waiting list are managed transparently. Therefore, I can confirm that Coral Star does not hold an annual or permanent berth with us. Its previous berth was assigned to the Kraken Coral Star, is currently using a berth temporarily under a summer LTV long-term visitor licence, which belongs to another annual mooring licence holder, who are not using it. This temporary licence expires on September the 30th and will not be renewed by the harbour. The current commercial status of both MV Kraken and MV Coral Star remains unchanged. However, the reasons for the Coral Star losing its moorings, given to Anderson in an email, are very different to those given to the Isle of Wight Observer. They include failure to provide documents, including proof of an insurance with 7 days of our reasonable request, failure to take reasonable precautions to prevent harm or damage to others, and conducting yourselves or acting in such a way that causes or is reasonably likely to cause any danger, obstruction, nuisance or annoyance to us, to any other users of the harbour, or to any other person residing in the vicinity of the harbour. Tim is a captain of 40 years, and Michelle said, "We've done everything the harbour have asked us in terms of safety certificates and risk assessments, alongside carrying on MCA passenger certificate, but we're still waiting for the go-ahead. We have even asked if there is anything else they would like us to do, but we haven't heard anything. We had a minor safety issue recently when there was no harm or damage caused, which is still being investigated by the harbour, so we don't know if this is being held against us. This particular example could not happen on the Kraken. The Coral Star has been moored upriver during the summer, but by closing this mooring, we will have to find another berth locally. If we can't do that, then Lymington is our option. The same with the Kraken. If we don't get the go-ahead, then we will have to think of other options. But the whole point of the Kraken is that it will benefit the people of Yarmouth with later sailings and returns. Obviously, being based at Lymington would affect the timetable, as the final journey of the day would have to finish over there. West White MP Richard Quitchley commented, "I've written to the harbour master asking him to expedite the risk assessments so that the Kraken can start serving islanders as soon as possible. Considering the current issues with existing operators, a fully functioning competitor is in all our interests. I hope the situation will be resolved in the very near future, but we are taking up the matter with the DFT just in case further encouragement is needed."
Sex offender is spared jail after fast food knife threat. A convicted sex offender who threatened to stab a McDonald's manager after demanding food he hadn't paid for has been spared jail. Shane Newnham of Moreton Road, Brading, appeared before a judge at the Isle of Wight Crown Court on Tuesday, September the 17th. At a previous hearing in July, the 39-year-old admitted using threatening, abusive or insulting words or behaviour with intent to cause fear of or provide unlawful violence in Newport on March the 22nd. Prosecutor Alexandra Bull said an agitated, heavily intoxicated Newnham was in Newport McDonald's at around 2:30 p.m. She said he was insistent and loud, asking for food and demanding a milkshake. Ms. Bull said the fast food outlet manager intervened, asking Newnham to leave, and he made attempts at taking other customers' food from the counter. She said he went on to threaten the manager, saying he would come back for him and that he was going to stab him. The court heard Newnham later tried to bargain with his victim, telling him he would leave if he was given chicken nuggets, to which the manager replied, "Only if you pay." Police officers were called and Newnham was arrested. The court heard he had already been made subject of an 18-month community order imposed in February for sexually assaulting a 16-year-old and was thus in breach. Jim Osborne, defending, said Newnham's previous offence caused his family to disown him and his mental health deteriorated massively. He said that, and his drinking, led to the incident at McDonald's, and when he tried to stop drinking, he had fits due to alcohol withdrawal. The court heard he had been signed off sick from work. Newnham was fined £200 and made subject of a fresh 18-month community order to include 40 rehabilitation days and a 12-month alcohol treatment requirement.
A woman has been fined after allowing a banned man to enter her property twice in breach of a community protection notice. John Pole of Albert Street, Ventnor, attended the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Friday, September the 13th, and pleaded guilty to failing to comply with a community protection notice. Lawrence Stone, prosecuting, said a notice was issued following reports of antisocial behaviour, namely drug use, disruption and the stabbing of a female with links to drug supply inside a block of flats. Although the 45-year-old is not understood to have been involved, the notice applies to her and other neighbours who live at the building. One of the conditions was not to associate with several individuals or allow them on the premises. A staff member at Southern Housing said they watched CCTV footage showing a banned man entering the Pole's property twice on June the 17th and 19th. Oscar Vincent, defending, told the court Pole has autism and high anxiety and people take advantage of her good nature. The man was a friend who attended Pole's address to check on her welfare, Mr. Vincent added. Pole must pay £85 costs and £40 fine and £16 surcharge.
No jail for sex assault NHS doctor. An NHS doctor who sexually assaulted a cleaner in a cupboard at St Mary's Hospital has avoided jail. Married predator Shimindo Ikpo left his victim an absolute mess after he pursued his amorous intentions towards her against her will and squeezed her bottom for 6 seconds, a court heard. And the woman hit out at the health service for allowing the 50-year-old father of 4 to continue working at the hospital as he awaited trial, claiming he had been given more support over the incident than she had. The incident was originally reported as having taken place between December the 31st, 2019 and March the 1st, 2020. Ikpo was handed community service after being found guilty of sexual assault following the incident, having denied the matter in court appearances over the years. Portsmouth Crown Court heard the doctor was initially suspended, but was then allowed to work under supervision, including in gynecology, while waiting for his trial. He was dismissed by the hospital after his conviction in June this year, more than 4 years after the incident. In a statement read to the court by prosecutor Andrew Houston, the victim, who can't be named for legal reasons, said that the incident described the doctor as a predator who took advantage of her. She criticised the hospital's handling of the incident, saying that she felt she was seen as just a cleaner and was shocked to find out he had been allowed to continue working at the hospital. She said, "There's been no support from the hospital. There's been more support for Mr. Ikpo than there has been for me." Hannah Hurley, defending, urged the judge not to send Ikpo to prison, saying the incident was out of character. She said that it was not a case of an abuse of trust, and that Ikpo denied there was any sexual element to the incident. Judge William Ashworth said Ikpo's role as a doctor was a position in which a lot of respect and trust is placed, and that any sexual assault is a gross violation. He said there was an imbalance of power where the victim is left feeling she is just a cleaner because of the wholly irresponsible way in which you decided to pursue your own amorous intentions with her. No one is just a cleaner. We are all humans. We are all equal. Ikpo, now based in Orpington, Greater London, was given a community order of 24 months, including 100 hours of unpaid work and rehabilitation days. He will be registered as a sex offender. Ikpo, who trained at university in Nigeria, has now been suspended from the medical register and may not practice as a doctor in the UK. The Isle of Wight NHS Trust has apologised and emphasised its zero-tolerance approach to unwanted or harmful sexual behaviour within the workplace after a doctor sexually assaulted a cleaner at St Mary's Hospital. In a statement from the Isle of Wight NHS Trust, a spokesman said, "We are extremely sorry one of our colleagues experienced unacceptable behaviour. When internal allegations were made in August 2020, an immediate exclusion was put in place and a formal investigation process followed. Once that investigation concluded, Dr. Ikpo returned to training in February 2021 and GMC conditions were placed on his registration, meaning his practice and all work was supervised. In December 2023, we signed up to the NHS Sexual Safety Charter, which outlines our commitment to taking and enforcing a zero-tolerance approach to any unwanted, inappropriate and or harmful sexual behaviours within the workplace," the NHS statement continued. The charges do not relate to the patient care provided, and the individual has not worked for the organisation since March 2023.
And now we go over to White Memories. And this is particularly how island folk fell for the People's Princess. We can remember the time the People's Princess Diana visits in the Isle of Wight. The island had links to the royal bride-to-be, which predated her 1981 wedding to Prince Charles. Her ancestors were prominent in Ryde for many years, and St Thomas's Church, the oldest in the town, has had the royal cipher and arms of the Spencer family hanging side by side for more than 150 years. Princess Diana's first visit to the island was on May the 30th, 1985, when she toured the 1 million Adelaide Centre assisted accommodation and respite facility at Ryde. Although security guards kept a close eye on the princess when the crowds began to chant, "We want Di," she walked away from her escorts and scrambled up the grassy bank to chat to excited spectators. Former County Press reporter Richard Wright was there to cover the visit for the Portsmouth News. He said, "I was one of the press corps at the height of Diane fever and met her at the opening of the Adelaide Centre. She wore a stunning white two-piece and captivated the hundreds there simply with her presence. My colleague, a photographer, Chris Thwaite, and I agreed. Di's eyes had it. She spoke volumes with a glance." She also visited Fern Young Enterprise Centre at Ryde and spoke to some of the apprentices at work. She also found time during her visit to walk about in Sandown, chatting with residents and holidaymakers. 2 fire engines were also given royal titles after Diana suggested they be named Harry and William after her 2 sons. Her final point of call was the East Yar Road Business Centre. Her second visit to the Isle of Wight was a flying one in May 1985, arriving by helicopter in East Cowes on a 10-minute stopover on her way to a children's party aboard the QE2. Diana's final visit was on December the 5th, 1988, and a bitterly cold wind did not deter the princess from walking among the crowds at Cowes. Lyndon Hamden was 31 when she met Diana in Cowes. She said she was very relaxed and easy to talk to and very beautiful. I immediately felt a connection with her and forgot royal protocol and said, "It's lovely to meet you, Diana." But she wasn't worried and carried on smiling and talking about her son. Her interest to you was genuine, especially if it was anything to do with children. She clearly adored her little children. Following the tragic death of Princess Diana, crowds packed St Thomas's Church, Newport, for a memorial service. At the memorial service, Archdeacon Ven Mervyn Banting said, "Diana's gift was her ability to reach out and touch people who were untouchable, and in doing so remind them that they were still part of the human race. We must build into our lives that precious gift, and we have that capacity already to touch, to care, and to include."
Days gone by. The county press has been bringing the news to islanders since 1884. We've delved into the archives to find out what was happening in days gone by. 125 years ago, in September 1899, a serious blaze on Ventnor High Street destroyed a 3-storey furniture warehouse and caused questions to be raised about the water supply from street hydrants. At first, the pressure in the hydrants was produced only a dribble of water, and it was some time before firefighters had the blaze, which enveloped the whole building and destroyed the upper floors of 2 neighbouring buildings, under control. Funding for a replacement school building for the Parkhurst Sunday School continued with a 2-day bazaar. The existing 50-year-old building was too small and in dilapidated condition. The new building cost £700, and it was hoped that at least half this sum would be raised at the bazaar. An unusual incident happened on the homeward voyage of the liner Carisbrooke Castle. The letters for English passengers on the Lismore Castle had not arrived when they sailed from Cape Town, so the captain of the Carisbrooke Castle, sailing the following day, offered to deliver them en route. The Carisbrooke overtook the Lismore and dropped a barrel containing the letters into the sea, which the Lismore then picked up.
And just one more from days gone by. 75 years ago, in September 1949, the expansion of the island air transport to a point of which there would be a fully equipped airport with night vision and other modern facilities was visualled at a Chamber of Commerce meeting. Commercial Director of Air Enterprises Limited, P. May, said he could visualise the use of aircraft carrying as many as 60 people, but that islanders would have to become air-minded for any project to succeed. The replacement of the university school and higher certificate exams with the General Certificate of Education raised administrative problems for island schools. The new system had 3 levels: ordinary for 16-year-olds, advanced for 18-year-olds, and scholarship for those wishing to continue to university.
50 years ago, in September 1974, alarm was expressed at a meeting of Bondchurch Residents Association at the increase of Dutch elm disease on the island, and the lack of positive action to contain it. Although diseased elms were being felled, some were not being disposed of properly, therefore increasing the risk to other trees. The traffic in Newport came to a standstill for 10 minutes when more than 30 farmers drove their farm vehicles through the town centre. It was one of 500 protests throughout the country drawing the public's attention to problems within the industry, with slogans such as, "We go, you go hungry."
And now we go on to My View. And the first of My View is Joe Plum, Let's Move On from the Victorian Era. Hey beasties, we've come to the end of Brat Summer, and with it the annual mass exodus of young people leaving the farm as they head off over the water to stay at university. It got me thinking, is the Isle of Wight a place for Gen Zers? The latest population stats do look very lit for young people. If we're not careful, we could be heading into our permanent boomer retirement home era. It's Changi no cap. The island isn't getting employment. It's not giving houses. It's not giving good prospects for anyone under 60. Is it time we gave the island a vibe check? Now I stand the island. I think it's very curiosity, very mindful, very demure, but it's not giving main character energy. It's a beige flag. How can we do to make our island the goat? How can we make it hit different? We are high-key obsessed with the past. For too long the island has moved backwards, trying to replicate its picture postcard history. Yay, sure, there's Victorian stuff, ate and left no crumbs, but we're not there anymore. We need to look forward instead and make the island an exciting place for the future. Okay, boomers, rather than getting on ick over changing anything from what it looked like in a heyday, why don't we think about how to take the island into its new heyday? The Victorian lived rent-free in a lot of minds. We're not a living museum. Let's stop obsessing about what buildings looked like, but think about what drew people there in the first place. What brought those people over here? People like the freshwater set. The greatest minds in the country would come here to hang out IRL and escape the meaty bee of their busy lives. It was a lit space to get creative. These poets, playwrights, scientists, authors, photographers all came here to be inspired, to exchange ideas, to dream up an exciting future. And it had a good clout, very Gucci. Yay, since the ferries don't cost an insane amount of guffs like we have to pay, maybe that's one of the radical changes we need to make. I believe we can be that lit place again. It's time to start our new era. The council are delulu to all of this, though. Too busy cutting primary schools rather than dealing with the actual problems. Very sus. The population imbalance requires positive change, period. It required positive change rather than negative reaction. We need the council to understand the assignment and help make this a better place to live and work for young people and families. We need them focused on providing support for people to start their own businesses, not trying to make a quick buck licensing A-frames in the street. We need them to come up with a plan. We need creative solutions to make this a place we're proud of. But it's not just down the count of the council. We've all got to do it. The NIMBY era is over. The future is coming. Embrace it. It's not just a positive future for the next generation. It's for everyone. There are excited times ahead with news of the new film studio, of creative transformations of building, and a fresh set of MPs. The island has got to be a place to live in, not somewhere people coming to die. Embrace change because Brat Island is coming firm. We can't afford for it not to.
Think of the island as a whole, not just your bit, by Councillor Phil Jordan, Isle of Wight Council leader. I grow ever more concerned about the apparent lack of islanders being, well, islanders. Recent issues that our island face, which are difficult, with no easy answers and with a range of wider impacting factors, has seen communities become entirely fixed upon their local area and ignoring the complexities and problems we face as an island community. There are many examples of this, but most recently we have seen two big issues. One is the issue of school places and the falling numbers coming into our school system, a falling birth rate also being seen countrywide, and the overall financial predicament schools are facing because of the lower numbers of children coming into the school system. This is because schools are funded by government by each pupil attending a school. There are currently around 1,900 places in our schools which are not filled by pupils. The demand simply does not match the provision and capacity available. It is an island-wide problem. It needs an island-wide solution. However, what we are starting to see is communities becoming determined to prevent any local area change in schooling provision, preferring the change to come from other areas of the island. Of course, those other areas also want no change in their areas, which leaves the problem unsolved. This is what I am referring to as being an islander, with a concern and empathy for our island, which requires an island-wide perspective and not just a local community perspective. Where issues are local, there is of course great support for finding answers to the local problem, but where the issues impact our entire island, we must find a way to act in the best interest of our entire island. We saw this disparity over recent plans for housing being built on the island. The draft island plan set out numbers of houses that could be built as a duty to have in place a local planning strategy. We can argue the numbers. No one wants our beautiful island overdeveloped, but working under government guidelines and regulations and mindful that we need homes on our island, affordable for the most part, it was disappointing to see local communities argue why houses were not needed in specific areas of the island. They also wanted homes built elsewhere on the island, whilst those local communities have argued they did not want to move more homes either. We do have to live as islanders, considering all our island problems, and I do begin to question if these local community wants and wishes really would serve the Isle of Wight. The island is the island where we all live, work and play as a broad island community.
And now we move on to public information. Anyone can become a victim of a scam. It's important to remember that any one of us could quite easily become the victim of a scam. Nobody is immune, however careful you think you are. Here is some advice from the Isle of Wight Against Scams partnership, known as AWASP, and some useful helplines too. Never believe a call supporting to come from Bank Fraud Department. If you receive one of these calls, call 159 to confirm if the call is legitimate. Never believe an online request for financial help or for offering financial advice from a friend. Scammers can hack and clone emails, Facebook pages and WhatsApp accounts and pretend to be one of your friends to gain access to your details or cash from you. Never use PayPal friends and family payments to buy anything or transfer money for goods. These are immediately payments designed to only be used between friends and family, and you have no recourse if the item doesn't appear or isn't what you ordered. Never trade on the doorstep. Any genuine trader will never knock the door and offer to do the work for you. The work is likely to be shoddy, and the original price will quickly escalate. Flyers and leaflets are relatively cheap and easy to produce and are no guarantee of a company being genuine. Never buy an item for Facebook Marketplace without seeing it first. Visit the property and inspect the goods. If the person selling is reluctant to do this, then walk away. Reporting a scam. For advice on scams, call the Citizens Advice Consumer Helpline on 0808 250 5050. To report a scam call, Action Fraud on 0300 123 2040. For more information on scams, visit www.iwasp.org.uk. Search countypress.co.uk for more articles from IWASP.
Cosy homes to help hedgehogs make it through winter months. As we get closer to the cosy seasons, it's not just us Brits wanting to stay warm and cosy. Hedgehogs will be preparing for their hibernation. Hedgehogs begin their hibernation period in October or November, and it lasts until March or April. To help you provide a hedgehog haven in your garden this autumn and winter, Faith in Nature has shared several ways you can lend hedgehogs a helping hand. Although a report from the beginning of 2024 noted garden sightings of hedgehogs had increased by 2 percentage points, their population has massively decreased since the millennium, with a decline of 30% in urban areas and 50% in rural areas. Gardens can be a rich habitat for hedgehogs, and they help keep them away from the dangers of busy roads. However, these small creatures can roam around a mile every night, so one enclosed garden isn't enough for them. Hedgehog highways are a way of connecting multiple gardens, giving hedgehogs more safe space to roam, Faith in Nature explains. You'll need to cut a 13 by 13 centimetre hole in the garden fence. While gardeners may see caterpillars and slugs as pests, hedgehogs feed on these creatures so they can help keep them off your plants. While neatly manicured lawns and flower beds look great, a wilder area can help make hedgehogs feel welcome. Compost heaps or piles of leaves and logs in a quiet corner of the garden can provide the perfect place for hedgehogs to sleep or hibernate. As well as offering a snug, secluded sleeping spot, warm, dry and dark areas like this will attract the invertebrates hedgehogs eat, like worms, slugs and insects.
And if you have a long garden, consider making your wild area at the bottom, away from the house. Try leaving a patch of bare soil to give hedgehogs easy access to worms. Let grass grow tall and plant wildflower seeds to attract even more invertebrates and pollinators. Hedgehog houses provide a safe, cosy place for hedgehogs to sleep or hibernate. In autumn, hedgehogs collect dried leaves, moss and other plant matter to line their cosy winter bed for hibernation. You can also provide a purpose-built hedgehog house for them to bed down in over the winter. These can either be bought or made, but you should avoid any that have mesh inside, as these can get caught in hedgehogs' spines. For more information on how to make a hedgehog house, you can visit the British Hedgehog Preservation Society website. When there are fewer invertebrates along them for them to feed on, provide hedgehogs with supplementary food can help them get through the colder months. It can also help them fatten up in winter when wild food is in shorter supply and they need to increase their energy supplies ahead of hibernation. Hedgehogs don't sleep solidly for the entire winter. Whenever their fat reserves start to run out, they'll wake up and go in search of food. Provide good quality cat or dog food, wet or dry, non-fish varieties, and never feed a hedgehog bread and milk, as it can make them sick. Leave clean, fresh water out, especially during dry spells. You can help keep the food away from cats by making the hedgehog feeding station out of a storage box, cutting the small hole for the hedgehogs to get through, and weighing it down with bricks.
And now we move on to What's On, starting on Thursday the 26th of September with the Living Well and Early Help Service info point at 10 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. Please drop in if you need any information, guidance or support. At St Catherine's Church, 11 Church Street, Ventnor. You can also email them on reception at lweh.org.uk or by telephone 01983 240 732. On Friday the 27th of September, the Hoosiers are playing at Strings Bar and Venue, 9 Bowling Green Lane, Newport at 7:30 p.m. The Searchers and Hollies Experience at 7:30 p.m. at One Leisure Medina Theatre, Fairley Road, Newport. And on Saturday the 28th of September, the Isle of Wight Guild of Weavers, Spinners and Dyers open day at 11 a.m. at Rookley Village Hall, Highwood Lane, Ventnor. Email iwgwst@outlook.com or telephone 078 11515 474. And on Sunday the 29th of September, it's an evening with Laurel and Hardy. Join Neil Brand, composer, writer, broadcaster, musician, with his all-new show about the immortal comedy duo at Medina Theatre, Fairley Road, Newport. Medina.theatre at iow.gov.uk. Telephone 823 884 at 7:30 p.m.
And continuing with this, in Gurnard Support Group, drop in for people living with diabetes. 10 a.m. on the 25th of September, a support group for people living with diabetes. All are welcome. All Saints Church, Gurnard, Tutton Hill, Cowes. There's a rather complicated email address, but the telephone number is 07415399102. And solo rower set to share his story, Simon Howes, who made headlines last year for his incredible solo row across the Atlantic Ocean, is set to be a speaker at this year's Isle of Wight Literary Festival. On Friday, October the 4th, Simon will take to the stage to discuss his remarkable adventure and his newly released book, Atlantic Rower, which is already flying off the shelves. Simon, a retired stockbroker from Fishbourne, embarked on his transatlantic journey in 2023 at the age of 67, rowing over 5,300 kilometres from Europe to St. Lucia, entirely unassisted. He became the second oldest person in the world to complete this incredible achievement. During the Dural expedition, Simon raised over £100,000 for the Island Red Squirrel Trust, a charity close to his heart. In Antarctic Rower, Simon explores his incredible adventure, recounting both the highs and the many challenges he faced on the open sea. With no prior rowing experience, his story is a testament to grit, determination, and a great sense of humour. Simon's appearance at the Isle of Wight Literary Festival will feature an interview with ITV producer Steve Ansell. He will reflect on his journey, the inspiration behind it, and how his impulsive purchase of a 25-foot ocean rowing boat led him to fulfil his dream. Proceeds with some of Simon's book will continue to support the Red Squirrel Trust, which recently purchased 12 acres of island woodland, and a few other things at the Shanklin Theatre. Every Thursday until the 10th of October at 8:15, Beyond the West End. Let me find the next one. Friday the 27th of September, 7:30, there's the play Manhunter Live. Any more? Yes. Saturday the 28th of September, 7:30, the Greatest Hits Tour, T-Rex to see. And in New Autumn Winter 2024, there's a New Autumn Winter 2024, and the brochure is out now.
And now we come on to this week's letters, starting with Wall Ghosts Got Me Thinking by John Matthews from Carisbrooke. I refer to the very interesting article Ghostly Wall Signs Peek into Our Past by Alex Cooper, based on research by Debbie Pledge, in the County Press, 13th of September 2024. The sign Cranbourne Rest is rather crude and relatively modern. The Cranbourne Inn closed about 1970 and was replaced by a restaurant, the Cranbourne Restaurant, which lasted about a year before closing permanently. The sign was produced for this very short-lived business. There was no room for the full word restaurant. The board school was built in 1895. A British school existed as a previous building on the site. British schools were formed by non-conformist churches in opposition to the Anglican national schools and provided a non-denominational religious education curriculum. When elementary education became compulsory by the Education Act 1870, board schools were established to continue the non-denominational form of education and were run by ad hoc bodies. In 1902, the Education Act abolished board schools and replaced them with schools directly administered by local authorities. Newport Board School became No-Till Council School. My grandfather, Charles Moody, was a well-known national school headmaster at Sandown between 1914 and 1948, the top school whose site is now occupied by the Broadway Centre. As a child, he was educated at Barton Board School. He was one of the last pupil teachers in 1900 at that school. And from 1909 to 1914, he was a young teacher at No-Till Council School.
No free eggs for pensioners. Dear Editor, how I chuckled at the wit of Mr. Quidgley regarding his maiden speech offering free pickled eggs to visiting MPs, who no doubt would add the ferry fare to their expenses. No mention of free eggs for pensioners, who he voted to remove winter fuel allowance. Please, Mr. Quidgley, no more. It was those nasty Tories what made me do it. It's rather boring. I will look forward to reviewing the expenses of Mr. Quidgley's, especially heating. John Brayford, Newport.
Why Wasn't Joe There? By Sam Smith, Ventnor. Dear Editor, I see that Richard Quigley MP sorted himself a meeting and photo opportunity with a Transport Minister to discuss ferries last week. He is very vague about what was actually said. Please could Mr. Quigley explain whether he invited East White MP Joe Robertson to the ministerial meeting? If he didn't, may I suggest it was more of a political photo opportunity than a serious attempt to deal with the ferries? What happened to working together on ferries? Isle of Wight Observer, August the 2nd.
This is from Susan Clarkson of Ryde. Dear Editor, what started as a dispute between two closely related neighbouring countries has escalated into a very dangerous situation. It's also responsible for much of our 20 million financial black hole. Putin has been driven mad by the EU and NATO gradually gaining member countries closer to the Roman border. He would prefer Ukraine to remain neutral so that NATO is not placed right along the Russian-Ukraine border. Zelensky is determined to join the EU and NATO in order to benefit from the investment and the freedoms that their neighbours, particularly Poland, has gained from membership. Zelensky has emerged as the most powerful world leader, with the ability to extract vast quantities of money and ammunition from any country. No world leader seemed able to refuse his requests. Putin and Zelensky are equally determined and will fight to the death. The resulting cost of human lives is unforgivable. An internal search reveals the UK has committed eye-watering sums of money to Ukraine. Presently, the figure is 12.7 billion, and that does not include the cost of providing for 220,000 refugees living in the UK. Taxpayers have provided 7.6 billion in military assistance and will pay a further 3 billion a year indefinitely. All those figures are pounds. The UK taxpayer non-military commitments to the people of Ukraine is £5 billion. Details of costs are available online. The internet does not list the oncoming costs of supporting 222,000 refugees in the UK. However, local authorities received $10,500 per refugee, extra for school-age children. Households hosting a refugee receive £350 a month. The housing costs increase when refugees move to their own home. They also receive benefits, healthcare and education. If Putin and Zelensky can come to an agreement, maybe we can begin to fill the black hole and fix our own crumbling economy.
Bad Decision on Winter Fuel Allowance by Robert Jones, Labour agent in many elections, of Knight and Undercliffe. Dear Editor, I have every sympathy with Richard Quigley's position on the winter fuel allowance. To rebel as a new MP is senseless. It would just mean that he would be isolated from his colleagues in government and unable to play the full part we elected him to play. Joe Robertson, of course, is in a different category and under no such restraint. Rachel Reeves, however, has, in yielding to Treasury pressure and in such an unanticipated way, made life very difficult for all Labour MPs and constituency parties faced with local council elections next year. Even leaving aside the moral objections and those that have been made on purely economic grounds, her decision to cut this payment is, politically, frankly, crazy. Of course, I understand the last government left a huge fiscal hole that has somehow to be filled, and that they misled us all about it. The trouble is that no one will be convinced that there's any kind of consolation in future jam when you remove today's bread. Yes, pensioners will do better next year. Yes, those who haven't previously claimed pension credit can do so. But that will take time and doesn't compensate for an immediate cut. I think Labour, my party, has to be honest and open about this. Those on the margins, not quite in reach of pension credit entitlement, but not rich pensioners either, will suffer. They, we that is, can blame the last government and should, but we know that people will blame the government actually in power. I hope my Labour colleagues will forgive me for saying that the fight for social justice goes on, irrespective of who is in government. Loyalty is important, but should not be taken for granted. I believe Miss Reeves has made a bad decision. I think we have to face up to that.
Disgraceful. Lindsay Rowlands from East Cowes. Richard Quisley, we are elected by residents to represent the constituency and support West White Islanders to the best of your ability. So on the subject of your first major vote concerning pensioners, and because you are clearly so terrified of your arrogant dictator leader Starmer and his sidekick Reeve, you voted to deprive over 16,000 West White pensioners of their winter fuel allowance. Absolutely disgraceful and irresponsible voting on your part. You were fortunately elected to replace a very active, caring and responsible MP, Bob Seeley, who worked his socks off representing huge issues affecting this island. Let's not forget that this time last year we were receiving winter fuel allowances plus additional financial support from our previous government each month to combat the ever-increasing fuel prices at the time. Your leaders are trying to justify their decision to abolish winter fuel allowances by quoting increases in triple lock pensions in April next year at the end of this winter. Many of these pensioners are already paying tax on their state pensions, which will of course increase in April, along with their tax burden, and they will receive less of the increase. In 1997, within 3 weeks of gaining power, the Labour Party raided the pension schemes across the UK by abolishing tax credits, and those schemes lost millions intended for their future dependents. It would appear that the Labour Party begrudge older people every penny they receive from the state. What an appalling party to admit to being a member of, let alone representing their disgraceful policies of attacking pensioners who have contributed to the system all their working lives. In your newspaper reports regarding Westminster, you are banging on about your office. We are not in the slightest bit interested. We simply want to know what issues you are planning to support in West White.
Save the NHS by Geoffrey Brooking. So it is now categorically clear that the Conservative Party left our NHS on the brink because Lord Darcy's report now proves it. Ever since the NHS was founded under a Labour government, it has never been in such a sorry state. So I fully welcome Sir Keir Starmer's commitment to a 10-year plan to turn the NHS around. The Conservative Party policy of sticking plaster politics has failed completely. Tough and bold decisions need to be taken, and Labour is the party to take them.
Right, and with that, we're going to say goodbye to you. We've finished most of the reading anyway. So it's goodbye from Imelda and have a nice weekend, although the weather doesn't look good.
And it's goodbye from me, Sam. The BBC In Touch programme follows, and the scaffolding news follows that.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello. Later, 2 future programmes which we'd like your help with. We want your questions and your experiences. But first, we're featuring Melanie's story. Melanie Barrett is a keen swimmer with 5 Paralympic medals to her name, including 2 golds. But pounding up and down a well-supervised swimming pool with clearly defined boundaries is one thing, but imagine setting off with very little sight to swim over 21 miles in wide open spaces, battling with freezing temperatures, random rocks, waves and the more than occasional jellyfish. That's what Melanie Barrett did recently when she became what we believe to be the first blind woman to swim the English Channel. Well, I've been talking to her about this achievement and trying to find out what made her do it.
I've always loved swimming from a really early age. I'd love being in the water and feeling it around me and feeling myself moving through it, and just the freedom it seemed to give me. I was aware that people swam the channel and did open water swimming, but I just thought as a registered blind person it would just be something that would be impossible to do. It's been in the back of my mind for many, many years, and it was only really in the last probably 4 years or so when I actually started venturing into the open water, and I met a friend who is now an extremely good friend of mine and was one of my crew members. She had attempted to swim the channel once and she just came back from trying again, and she took me out on my first river swim and she talked about what it was like, and I was kind of a bit captivated by it all, and that just brought it to the forefront of my mind. And then it kind of spiraled from there really to signing up to do it, which you have to do several years in advance anyway.
Is there a queue of people doing
There's a very, very long queue of people because there's only 12 boats that can go out and do it at any time. So some of them are going to be relays. There's only a few that are solos. I think I booked it 2.5 years ago now. And it's really, really popular. You have to literally be there ready to book when they open their systems, basically. It's crazy, isn't it? You wouldn't think it'd be that popular, but
Well,
it is.
didn't anyone say you're not really going to do this? I mean, I'm just wondering if anyone tried to stop you.
My husband,
Oh, right.
he was worried. I think he was mainly worried because there are so many variables when you try and swim the channel. I mean, like I mentioned, my friend, she got stuck in some really strong currents that meant that she didn't manage to finish, and the weather conditions can change considerably and the waves can get bigger, and there can be so many things that are out of your control that you end up being pulled from the swim. And he knows me really well. He knows that I would see that as a failure and I'd really struggle with that mentally. And he was worried that that's what I'd end up, really suffering with. But luckily it didn't turn out like that.
Just to tell me how you've prepared for it, because you've done lots of things, haven't you? You've done lots of other fairly challenging swims to get ready.
Yeah, so obviously I've got quite a strong pool background. So that's swimming up and down a swimming pool, which, every pool is the same as the one down your road pretty much. The water's going to be the same. It's going to be the same distance. I know how many strokes it takes me to swim that. Open water is nowhere near like that. It's kind of got a different size course. It's got a different number of strokes between buoys. It smells differently. It tastes differently. It feels different. So I've had to adjust to lots of different locations and work out how I can swim in each place. And as a blind person, it's really, really difficult to actually even get to these places because my nearest one is like 45 minutes away. So just logistically, it is hugely, hugely challenging. So most of my training has still been done in the swimming pool, which is really unusual for open water. But I have gone to like a quarry to swim a lot. And also I've ventured down to Dover, which I was really proud of myself for. I went down there on my own and stayed in a hotel on my own and got myself to the beach by myself, to the Dover Channel training group, and trained with them for many, many hours. And that was really good because I was actually swimming in the English Channel. That was probably my biggest thing that I did. Yeah. Then aside from all that, you need to get used to the cold. Again, it's the best thing to do is go and swim in open water. But because that's just so challenging, I've got a whiskey barrel in my garden. So all through the winter, I've been sometimes even cracking the ice to go and sit in this whiskey barrel. And I was actually thinking about this when I was swimming the channel, like, this is what this is for. That's why I went and sat in the barrel and, froze for 20 minutes at a time because, to try and develop some cold tolerance so that when it comes to the big day, it's not cold. And I was fine. I didn't feel cold at all. And if I hadn't have done all that training and all the mental preparation and all the cold acclimatization, it wouldn't have been as, well, it's not easy, was it?
No,
it would have been a lot harder.
Tell me, I mean, you were, as we've mentioned, you were a very successful Paralympic swimmer in your time. I'm just wondering what led you to want to take part in open water swimming anyway. What's the appeal?
Well, yeah, I mean, the pool environment, like I said before, the pool environment is really predictable. But I can remember very clearly the first time that I tried open water swimming, and it's I don't know, it's a combination of the smells and the feeling of the water and the wind in my hair and on my face and the sound of nature. I just got such a buzz from it. And if you go when it's cold, it's even more of a buzz because you sort of like, I don't know, it kind of gets your adrenaline going a lot more. And it almost feels to me like it's what swimming should be for. Like it's a difference between running on a treadmill and running outside. It feels like that's where it should be done. So I like the feeling, especially now I've swum from one country to another. I like the feeling of swimming from place to place rather than up and down.
And just to stay with cold water swimming for a moment, I mean, you mentioned the whiskey barrel. Cold water swimming, I've done it, and it's a terrible shock. I think you think it's got, various health varieties, quite apart from being an interesting challenge, which you obviously enjoy.
Yes. So my primary focus was to try and get a cold acclimatisation, but I have realised over the last couple of years, I've been going in cold water for quite a few years now. I think to build up the tolerance, it does take a couple of winters to build up your cold tolerance. And I've been going there to lakes and in my whiskey barrel for, a good couple of years. And since I've started doing it, I have definitely noticed an improvement in my mental health. And if I'm feeling a bit down or whatever, I just go in the cold tub for a minute or two and it's amazing. It's like popping a pill. And I don't know if that's just me or it's very anecdotal, isn't it? I don't know whether it's got evidence behind it, but I think a lot of people say the same. And I haven't really had any significant illnesses since I started doing it. I think it's really good for your blood supply and your blood pressure, and it makes me feel alive, which is probably the main reason why I do it. I mean, now that I've finished the channel, I know that when it gets colder out there, I'll still go back in the barrel because it makes me feel alive.
Just to come back to the channel swim itself, I mean, I can remember as a blind kid hearing about people swimming the channel, and I was a fairly kind of bold kid really, but the idea absolutely terrified me. The idea of being surrounded by water and in my mind with nothing to guide you. Navigation must have been a huge issue for anyone doing it, more particularly if you can't see what's around you.
Yes, it's one of the really big challenges for everybody that tries to swim the channel. So what happens is that you're not allowed to just go and do it by yourself. You have to swim alongside a registered channel boat. So there are 12, I think, the Channel Swimming Association and also the CSPF, the Channel Swimming and Piloting Federation. And so you register with them and they basically escort you across the channel. So sighted people would swim next to the boat. They follow the boat across the channel. It plots a course, a safe course, and you have to stick with them. Nobody's allowed to touch you at all. So they take you to a beach, Samphire Hoe, and you swim to shore, and then you turn around, get in the water, and then from then onwards, nobody can touch you until your feet leaves the water on the other side. So nobody could guide me, and nobody could really touch me at all. I knew it was going to be an incredible challenge. I'm lucky enough to have some vision. I can see colours and shapes out of one of my eyes. The other eye is completely blind. So I can see really, really bright colours. The boat that we have, Masterpiece, was purple, which isn't any help at all, really, because the sea's blue, so there's no contrast there. So my team have got this, if you can imagine, the brightest possible orange, neon orange colour that could probably be seen from space, like incredibly bright, that is in the form of an enormous flag. I mean, it must have been like 2 meters squared, and they hung it over the side of the boat. When we started at night, and what they did was they shone a torch onto this neon flag, and I could actually see that quite well, so I could follow alongside the boat, but I couldn't judge the distance between me and the boat, but I could follow this orange flag. That was brilliant, and as the day went on and it got lighter, I could still see it, so that was a massive help. But I couldn't see objects that I had to swim around. Apparently there was a door floating in the channel, which is, you wouldn't expect that, and big clumps of seaweed, any huge jellyfish or anything like that, or any kind of information that they'd need to pass on to me. So over the past couple of years, we've managed to get some technology that really helps with that. It's a waterproof guiding system. So my guide on the boat has a radio, and I have a bone conducting, it's like a circular thing that goes inside my swimming hat. The system's called sonar, and they could talk to me and guide me in real time. And we tended to use the clock face. So, like 1 o'clock is just a bit off to your right and 11 o'clock is off to your left. Although as time went on, it got a little bit confusing for all of us, I think, because I think we all got a bit tired. But I got the gist of it. And that was really good because then they could guide me around obstacles and also give me information like when my next feed is coming up, where I've got to go to get the feed, because they throw it to me like a water bottle on a rope. and I have to find it. And that was invaluable. I don't think I could really have done it without that.
And presumably you practiced with this, did you? You had to go with it before you did the channel swim, presumably.
Yes, I have done quite a lot of other swims. So I've swam the Thames Marathon several times. Last year I did a relay of Lake Geneva, which was me and 5 other women. We swam the length of Lake Geneva, which is 71 kilometres, and we used it for then as well. And it is great because it not only does it just help me, but it brings everybody together as a real team like nothing else would. They're all supporting me, but they can do it in a really active way.
So tell me about the swim itself. I mean, it's over 12 hours in the water, which is pretty quick, I would have said, but that must take a heck of a lot of stamina.
Yes. In my training, I mean, it's a bit like marathon training. I never did that much in training. So I did a 7 and a 6 hour swim. So 7 on a Saturday and 6 hours on a Sunday. That was the most I ever did. So in the back of my mind, I knew I could probably do it. But during those swims, there was always little breaks here and there to have a little drink. We'd swim back to the beach and stand up and have a drink and then start swimming again. But once you start swimming the channel, there is no break. You have to just continually swim until you get to the other side. It was definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. The hardest time was me between, I would say about 5 and 6 hours, because I'd reached the point where I think I'd run out of all the energy that my body had stored. So it suddenly hit me, it's like hitting the wall, I guess we call it. And mentally it was really tough as well, because I'd done nearly 6 hours. And whereas I would probably be getting out soon after a long swim in my training, I now had this indefinite amount of time in front of me that was probably at least as far again. And that was mentally really very tough. But I think you begin to accept, once you get past that point, you begin to accept that you're just going to be swimming for a very long time and try and break it down into like hourly break. So you know that you're going to not necessarily have a rest, but you get to have a drink after an hour. So you kind of break it up into chunks like that. That's the only way that I could manage to do it, really. But
what do you think about while you're in the water, other than the fact that this is going on for a heck of a long time?
When I was in training, I developed all these mind games. So I'd thought about going through the alphabet and thinking, say, for the letter A, thinking about everybody that I've ever known that begins with the letter A. And I really enjoyed doing that in training. And I thought I'll save it now for the actual swim, because I wanted something that I'd really enjoy. And I started doing it, but I barely got through about 2 or 3 names, and then I just couldn't do it anymore. And I think it was because I was just so in the zone and I wanted to be really present. So I can remember very clearly all of everything that was happening, and the feeling of the water, and all the colours that I could see, and the feeling of the sun on my back, and watching the sun move across the sky. I think I was just thinking about everything that was going on rather than trying to occupy my mind. I wasn't bored at all, which is quite incredible, really, because the way we live today, everything is all about screens and having input into your brain all the time. And to have 12 hours, it was about 12 hours 20 of just being inside your own head is really rare these days, isn't it? But from that point of view, I think it was a very special time.
She's done it. Yeah! You've just made history, woman.
How did you feel when you got out?
When I got out at the end?
Yeah.
So where I landed, it was quite interesting, because you can either land on the beach, or the shortest distance is to the Cap Grisnez, which is it kind of sticks out a little bit into the channel. So that's the shortest distance, 21 miles. And because the tide was quite good to us that day, I landed on the Cap, but the Cap is really, really rocky. So it's just rock. And I didn't know, because I couldn't see. I didn't know what I was ending up on until we got there. And a friend of mine, Natalie, had got in the water to help. She couldn't touch me, but she was trying to tell me where to go to get in. And she was trying to direct me to these rocks. And I had to find a rock that wasn't too slippery or pointy. Before I did the swim, I had these visions of like running up a beach and waving my arms in there and screaming in delight and being over the moon and everybody hugging me. But as it turned out, I just managed to crouch on a rock and wave my hand feebly in the air.
Yeah, because
which was a bit of an anticlimax.
I'd imagine that it would be almost impossible to balance, first of all, when you've been swimming for so long, especially if you're on a jagged rock.
I know. It was most undignified. Really not what I had visions of, and it's a bit of a shame, but it was just unbelievable. I would say it was probably the same as feeling that I got when I won my gold medal in Sydney. A mixture of relief thank goodness that's over. But also, did I just do that? That's incredible. Probably even more so. I still can't really believe that I did it because it's such a huge thing. And there's less. I think it's about 2,000 people that have done it in the whole world, and I'm the first person who's done it. Well, first woman who's done it who's blind, and that's huge, a huge thing. And I still can't really accept that.
You've said you love a challenge. What's next?
Yeah. Everybody's been asking me that. When I was in the depths of my training, I was saying to everybody, I'm never doing anything ever again. After this, that's it. Because it took up such a huge amount of time and space in my mind. The thought of doing anything else afterwards I just couldn't. But now I'm thinking, well, what should I do next? Obviously there's loads and loads of different things that I could swim, loads of lakes and seas and challenges. There's the Triple Crown, which would be the original Triple Crown is the Bristol Channel, the English Channel and the North Channel, but there is absolutely no way I'm ever going to do the North Channel. That's between Ireland and Scotland. And the tides are horrendous and it's really cold water. And also the worst thing for me is it's full of jellyfish. So that's not happening. So the other Triple Crown is around Manhattan. So you do the whole circumference of Manhattan Island. And that sounds like it'll be great fun. And also the Catalina Channel in California. So maybe, but these things are really expensive. So I've got to try and save up the pennies over the next few years.
Melanie Barrett. And whatever comes next for Melanie, we'll try to let you know. But I also want to let you know about a couple of upcoming programmes featuring some of the more down-to-earth challenges if you're visually impaired, and with which we'd welcome your participation. As technology skills become ever more crucial in navigating modern life, we'd like to hear from you about how you're dealing with it, how easy it's been to get the help you need to master the relevant skills, where you got that help, and what more you think could be done to equip visually impaired people for life where such skills are becoming essential. We're planning a Brains Trust with as many of the potential players taking part, including charities, big and small, local rehab services, manufacturers of the relevant equipment and indeed providers. Your questions, please. And it might be one of the subjects you'd like to raise with Sir Stephen Timms, who is Minister of State for Social Security and Disability under the new Labour government, who we hope to have on the programme in the very near future. Whether it's a question about social care, benefits, employment, education, or indeed something else you want to raise, we're inviting you to put your questions to him. You can email them to inTouch@bbc.co.uk, leave voicemails on 0161 836 1338, and we'll include as many of them as we can fit in. That's it for today. From me, Peter White, and producer Beth Hemmings, goodbye.
BBC Sounds, music, radio, podcasts.
This is the scaffolding news and the skip news for the 20th of September 2024.
In the Newport area, Malthouse Court, Crocker Street, 12 St James Street, 1 Holyrood Street, 10 Crocker Street, Island Beds 90 High Street, 47 High Street, Newport, Mencap 69 High Street, outside the Entertainer St James Street, 11 High Street, Andrew Ross 28 Holyrood Street, 56 Caesars Road, 48 High Street, 120 Lower St James Street and 36 High Street.
And in the Ryde area, the pavement outside 29 to 30 Cross Street, 60 Union Street, 45 George Street, 39 Nelson Street, the Nail Guys, 64 High Street, 73 George Street, St Leonard's 1 Pier Road, Seaview, Cloud 9 Cross Street, 63 George Street and 1 Fallen Road, Bembridge.
In the Shanklin area, 112 Regent Street, 109 and 109 High Street.
And in the Cowes area, 5 Granville Road, 80 St Mary's Road, 1 Beckford Road.
Topland area, Egan House, Broadway.
East Cowes, 4A to 6A, Clarence Road.
Sandown area, 3 Pier Street.
And the Brading area, 50 High Street, Brading, Northwood House, 31 High Street, Brading.
In the Ventnor area, Hamborough House, Hamborough Road. Fire Station 19 South Street, 10 Trinity Street, Blythe Cottage, Blythe Chute, Chale, and in the Ventnor area Skips, Vibena Cottage, Church Road, Knighton.